Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. I'm Patrick, and I am joined by my buddy Aram in Toronto. What's up, Aram?
Hello. Always nice to be on Oakland Warriors podcast. Man, I usually come on after wins. That game was not that was not a good ending. I had expectations. I know you've talked about in previous episode about how they're going to be down the stretch, and man, it's not looking good. And I just have to say, 10 games out from the end of the season, we got to give you some kudos, shout outs, because you've been doing this after every game in this season. We usually text during the game, and at the end of this one, because it came down to the wire, another game where lots of mistakes at the end. And I'm just like, man, how does Patrick do this? How does he come on after terrible games like this and talk about it? Because, I don't know. How do you do it? What's your secret?
My secret is sometimes I think the episodes are shorter. So I'm like, well, at least I don't have to edit as long. But, because I think for this team, it's taking the long view. And I said this before Steph got hurt, before Weisman got he re-aggravated or had the swelling in his knee. It was like this idea that their injured guys were going to most likely all come back. So the potential, I've talked about this since the beginning of the season, like the you want to see the true potential of this team. You want to see them reach that, right? And that's what made it easy to kind of go through these rough points, because you can just imagine, what it is.
Yeah.
And also, honestly, there's things when you cover pretty much every game, there's things that you see that you realize this might be interesting to people that are listening, to listeners, And so some of those insights, and then you just see trends, because you go from game to game to game, and you're like, okay, this game is just one loss. Not this game, but previous games, right? It's just one loss, and you write it off, and you see what you can fix, and you try to make sure the team gets, if you're on the Warriors, it's about seeing if they develop better winning habits and everything, and can learn along the way, right? That's the way this team is set up. It's not just a mediocre team. It's not a team full of just pure young dudes and rookies. So, even with this game, just just so people know, the Warriors lost to the Orlando Magic in Orlando 94-90 in a game that they were behind in early on. And then in the third quarter, they built a double digit, maybe 14-point lead, and then just coughed it up. So even in this game, I think I can find some silver linings. Maybe not silver. Maybe bronze linings.
Oh, I would choose a lesser metal, but because
aluminum foil.
I think it's helpful, and it has been helpful throughout the season to have the long view. It is a long season. We knew coming into this season it was going to be 3 seasons in one. Lots of transitions. I'm a little bit more of a emotional reactionary personality, I guess, especially after losses like this, because I'm like, okay, long view is good, but we're running out of time. We're running out of runway. We got 10 games left. Yeah. And the thing that you said, winning habits, they're getting worse. Because if we want to talk about this game, the reason why Orlando was able to come back was that the Warriors weren't even getting any shots up, because they were turning the ball over in the fourth quarter constantly. Mm-hmm. We can talk about, there's discontinuity, a lot of players in and out, and that's true, right? How much has the top 4 players played together, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But at some point, you got to play basketball, Yeah. And I know at some point we talked about can we learn how to set better screens? Mm-hmm. Because I don't know how many moving screen violations there were. Sure, maybe the refs are being calling it a little bit tight, but recognize it and
Yes.
make a better screen. And it's not only the screen setter, it's got to be the ball handler too.
Yeah.
I think they must, I mean, obviously they feel pressure, obviously a lot more than we do. And they're all trying to make it happen, right? In that kind of situation, ball handler is just rushing just like a half second too much, right? And not letting the screen setter get into proper position, that kind of thing sometimes, right? So it, again, that can be part of the discontinuity, but play basketball and do it right. And they're not building those winning habits. That's that's part of my frustration.
Yeah, those are my concerns too. Like I talked about, I think I had an episode called Non-Championship Habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was when Draymond was still out, maybe like a week or two before he came back. And they looked bad back then, right? And, I give them a little bit of a cushion in terms of trying to get used to not having Steph and then having like Otto Porter Jr., Draymond, Andrew Wiggins get back into the fold. Gary Payton II is the newest guy to come back.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, he set a terrible screen in the fourth where he pretty much just like ran right into Gary Harris.
Terrible.
And Gary Harris took the bait and he just bailed. He fell and it's an easy call. But I give them some leeway. But to blow a lead like that against a team that is as bad as the Orlando Magic, Orlando has talent, but they're not a good team. They're young. Yeah. And they should have just buried them. And one of those championship habits to me is to like control the game when it's a game you're in control of, right? And close out. And that's something that we've seen over the past. I mean, 2022 has been rough for the Warriors. They've been maybe at this point below 500. And I think that when it comes to that mindset, at first it was like, oh, Draymond's out. I would say like Draymond would not let this happen. And I'm sure that was echoed by other people too. But Draymond's on this team, mm-hmm. and people are still not reacting well. And, I could take a step back and say, okay, as long as Steph is ready for the first round, which he may or may not be, he's an optimist. All they said is that they'll reevaluate in 2 weeks or something, right? Mm-hmm. And if he's available, great, because then we know that if this team is pretty much whole, minus Weisman, if Iguodala comes back and he can help, then like I like our chances as long as the team starts clicking a little bit. But this is the same thing I said when Draymond was out. Is like these non-championship habits really kind of bug me because it's like, well, can these guys flip the switch? Because Draymond has been there, Klay has been there, Steph has been there. Steph's out. Draymond is trying to get used to being back. He's a little bit older. And then Klay is not the Klay that he was during the championship runs yet. Fingers crossed yet, And I just don't know like where, like you don't want them just to rely on Steph coming back and fixing everything the way they kind of did rely on Draymond coming back, because they started playing better the day he announced he was coming back on when he said he's coming back on March 14th. Right. So, right now it's like this 5-game road trip in 7 days. This was the easiest game. And after that rough loss to the Spurs, this was the one that you just had to have to feel good and get that vibe going. Sure, you knock a couple tough wins together moving forward and great, but like, can't you just knock that out now when you're up by 14 against a technically overmatched team?
Yeah. I mean, this is a daunting road trip, and this is the one that you had to have. And, they often play to their level of their opponent. And I expect a good effort in Miami, but still at the same time, like it's really frustrating. And I'm sure they're frustrated too. So, but it's interesting that you brought Klay and the inconsistency, which, seems to be the issue with this team and where they are right now. They were so consistent in the beginning of the year with a softer schedule, admittedly, but I think back to when, Klay Day and our expectations of him, and, you're talking about his championship level, and, he's just so inconsistent right now. When we talked about like what level did we expect him to come back? Like, would he be 60%? Would he be 80%? That kind of thing. And which one would we take? And I think, the problem with, I'm realizing now, thinking of that, is that like, sometimes he'll be Milwaukee game Klay, and he'll be 90% of what he was, maybe close to 100. And then he'll be 50% Klay, and that it's not this solid trajectory. And that just like adds to the inconsistency of this team. Like, they just have so few things that they can rely on right now. And, I hope that they can find some consistency, but, man, it ain't coming anytime soon, especially if you can't find it against a team that you really should be bearing. It's one thing to go down and miss shots. It's another thing to not even get a shot up, because you're moving screens. Not to harp on moving screens, but it's just
wild. And I mean, people should be talking about that. You know what I mean? If they're getting called for all these moving screens, and there should be adjustments being made. And yeah, I think inconsistency is obviously like a thing that hurts teams, hurts people in life, right? Like maybe you can really take a step back, right? But and Klay used to be the model of consistency.
Yeah.
And that's who you could rely on. And now you don't have that right now. And Wiggins was terrible. He was bad, Wiggins. I think he was like 1 for 11 in the first half or something like that, 1 for 10.
Yeah.
And Poole, he didn't shoot great, but he went after it at least. But even in the first half, he was like 1 for 6, I think. So, they don't have that. They have a lot of guys, but right now they just have a lot of guys, They have a lot of guys who don't know how to play. Honestly, it feels like they don't know how to play together without like Steph, without that guy that they can just rely on, and props to Poole for trying and taking it on. But I don't really know where it's going to come from. I mean, and it's funny because just like when the Warriors were playing good, when they had that nice little win streak and Draymond was back and everything, and it was like, all right, yeah, like all those bad thoughts are gone,
Yes.
And although it did linger in my mind, like, did they really figure it out before Draymond got back? And kind of, but like I said, they knew he was coming back, and so they all started playing better. It was after the Denver game that they lost, where the vets all went home, right? They played the kids.
They had that mini streak. Yeah.
Yeah. The kids played well in that loss to Denver, but then they went on this streak and they just started playing well. So now it's like the goal is to figure it out. And I always talk about, like health and then seeding and then getting like the new guys and young guys acclimated and ready. And obviously right now, health is still always the number one priority. You got to make sure that Steph is right. But, man, that like, seeding, it's going to be interesting. And I said a couple weeks ago, like, I don't care about seeding, like wherever they land, as long as they're healthy, I like our chances. But you don't like it when they're playing this way. And on, your point about Klay, oh man, like everybody, the P word, pressing, right? Like that foul on Wagner at the end, that was terrible. I don't feel like old Klay, pre-injury Klay would have done that, because I felt like he was just trying to do something to win the game. And he saw this rookie dude, and he probably thought like, I'm going to get this. And it was just a dumb, like any NBA player would have gotten the foul call on him for that. I mean, Klay pretty much ran into him. He didn't have to sell it. He just ran into him. And Klay was pretty like mad at himself, and it looked like on the court, and he should have been. I mean, that was the final straw. Like it was over.
It is a thing of there is something to wanting it too badly, right? And he's trying so hard to get back to that level that he's actually not helping himself get back to his old level, right? Like the fact that he's taking shots that he didn't used to take, and he's doing it in a way that just it's not him, and his mechanics even seem off. He always seems like a split second too fast, and it's the occasional 90 to 100% Klay that we've seen, like the Milwaukee Klay, where yeah, he looks like his old self, and he's not rushing, right? So, I can totally understand where he's coming from. And everybody's pressing. I can appreciate that if I'm gonna try to take the long view here. And something else interesting that you said, you're talking about Jordan Poole, and I know in the past we've talked about like who will be the most and the best and most important players on this team.
Great episode. That should be an annual thing.
and this guy's really showing it, right? Poole is really showing how important he is to this team, and really anytime he plays well, whether Steph is in or not, they have a chance, or like he's gonna fight to keep them in the game. And I really appreciate that, and it's fun to see him develop in this last streak that he's had, right? He had a run of a few games, and he's had a year of just like, I guess, our Warriors fandom, he's had this kind of up and down roller coaster year as well. And so to see him become this essential player, that I think we can count on, at least to put that effort in, to make shots and contribute to winning. I mean, it's really cool to see that. So, I think you and I and other fans and some of the people who cover the team have talked about, like, and this is not to like punt on this season, right? But we've talked about the next season.
It's over.
Yeah, that next season was the one that we were thinking would be really important too. And it's just cool to think of somebody ascending to this essential role on this team, like Poole, and being such an important player for the future of the team.
Yeah, exactly. And even after the last game, I talked about the effort was there from a lot of guys. They just couldn't pull it off, right? And so you walk away from that, and the fact that Poole is taking the responsibility, that he wants the moment, he wants the ball in his hands, and that's a good sign from now moving forward, regardless of how they finish the rest of these games, right? Like that's a positive sign. The fact that Otto Porter Jr., he looks healthy, he looks bouncy. He had 16
Otto
boards
Porter revenge game here tonight.
Yeah,
I think he played. I think he was on Orlando for half a season or something, but they didn't want you.
Exactly. So I mean, he had 15 boards in this one, so that was 16 and then 15, right? So these are all good things, and we could talk about. I mean, we have talked about a lot of the bad signs and stuff, and I think that they will start figuring some stuff out. They have to. They have no choice, because if they don't, what this tells me is if they don't have Steph or if they don't have Draymond, they are going to lose, right? Like, so because they can't play well for stretches, they can't close without those guys, So there's 10 games left, right? There's 10 games, and looking at the schedule now, it's not pretty, It's 10 games, so it's like at Miami, at Atlanta, at Washington, at Memphis, home against Phoenix, home Utah, at Sac, home against the Lakers, at San Antonio, at New Orleans. Off the top of your head, what do you think they'll finish, assuming Steph doesn't come back until the very end or after the regular season?
Man, I don't think they're gonna go like 2-8 or anything like that. Though I also didn't think that they were gonna have long losing streaks like they did earlier this season. But I think, and I would have counted the San Antonio and this Orlando game as wins too. So I just don't know, to be honest, because because they're so inconsistent right now, and they're trying to find some continuity and they don't have it. I am stalling to answer your question, but I almost feel like I want to see what they look like tomorrow, right? Playing the top team in the East and see what on the back end of a back-to-back, and I want to see what kind of effort they put out. Like, can they go in there and steal something? That would absolutely confirm the inconsistency of this team, but it would also be encouraging in that, like, when they need to get up for games, they will deliver, right? And earlier in the season, we've seen that, but I don't know where we're at right now. I mean, I would go with a lukewarm take and say they'll go 500 in the rest of these 10 games, maybe even a little bit better. But I don't know their chances against those top teams. They'll probably have a few stinkers against the poor teams as well. So somewhere in there, they'll be 500, I think.
Yeah. Before the Spurs game, I was like, that was a big question for me, because it's hard to predict, because I said, you don't know how these guys are going to look without Steph. On paper, there's talent. On paper, there's experience. On paper, there's youth and athleticism. But we've seen so far they haven't been able to put it together. Good point about seeing how they show against the Heat, because hell, man, like, if they beat the Heat somehow, then everything is like forgiven and forgotten almost. And so go the ups and downs of fandom. But what to me is like, it's almost like moral victories, right? If they at least like stay in the game and almost win, then that might be good too. But if they play this way the rest of the season, I think 3-7, maybe 4-6. But if they kind of start figuring it out, and who am I to say like, no, they won't, or yes, they will, because I just don't know. Because if it were Steph, Draymond, and then like a couple other dudes, then we could figure it out, right? But we don't know how these guys are without Steph, and we're seeing that they're very much missing something that we didn't expect. But I think that, again, it could be just getting a little bit more time on the court with each other and having some positives happen. But they could flip it around super easily and be like, oh, wow, okay, great. So Gary Payton II stops being rusty, and Jordan Poole keeps doing what he does. Klay has a couple games of shooting well, and then all of a sudden they rack off a few wins. I mean, that could happen too, right? Like, that's what's weird about this team and the uncertainty. And that's why, like, I think the rest of the season is just going to be rough, because it's going to be like up and down and whatever. And thankfully it's only a few weeks. So we have to deal with it. And
then we'll get that Oakland Warriors playoff preview episode, so, dropping right before the playoffs. I mean, I think one of the things is, and I feel like they say this as well, is that focus on the process and not the results. I mean, that's got to be the mantra for these last 10 games. Yeah. If they play the right way, the wins will come, or there will be some losses against a team that is also playing well. But it's building that consistency, playing right, focus on the process, not trust it, focus on the process, and get to a point where everybody's kind of running on better cylinders, I guess, because they're still in the 3 seed. They may fall as far as 4th or 5th. Who cares, right? Yeah. It does matter in terms of the matchups that you will come across, but the rest of those teams are also going through their own late season, issues as well. So that top middle bracket is kind of in flux. So don't worry about the opponents that you're going to see or not see, but just get to a place where you're playing better. And that's why this game was so frustrating, because that wasn't it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not only just the loss, it's like how you lose, how you walk off that court. And one more thing about Klay that I want to talk about, though, was like, I feel like he'll be better next season. I mean, obviously that's a homer optimistic take, but part of me also thinks like his mind needs a break in a way, right? Like, obviously we need him to, and he won't get a break into the playoffs, but like I think he'll need some time to really think and process because he's been out for 2.5 years and all of a sudden he's back and it's intense and he's dealing with like these emotions and trying to figure out how to be the player that he is and learn all these new guys. So like not only does he need to like work on his body and his game over the summer, I think he just needs to kind of like clear his mind a little bit. And, for a guy like him who spent so much time by himself in the last 2.5 years on his boat with his CBD or whatever he likes to do, he uses, or smoking weed, whatever. Like, I feel like that would be an important thing. But I think this team, obviously, like not punting on the season and still have high hopes as long as Steph is going to be back and healthy, but very, very just discouraging loss. It shouldn't go out like this.
Can't agree more. Manic Warriors fandom.
College basketball fans, join the action on the court during the biggest tournament of the year with DraftKings Sportsbook. Turn your team's victory into your own big win. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. It's that simple. If they win, you win. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still join the college hoops action with DraftKings Pools. Everyone can play free pools all March long for a shot at a share of over $250,000 in prizes. Simply join a pool and answer questions like, who will make it to the next round, and who will hit the most three-pointers? Then track your results. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TBPN. Bet $5 on any college hoops team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. If they win, you win with promo code TBPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook. 21 and over. Restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right. So you wanted to talk about some other stuff, man.
Yeah. We don't often see the Orlando Magic. I don't seek them out, in my general NBA watching. But they got some interesting young players that, because we were playing them, it was kind of cool to see. And I know in the past, especially, I think in draft time, we kind of did a Warriors Multiverse speculative fiction episode.
Yeah, and since then, like our phrase Warriors Multiverse apparently got stolen and became another Warriors podcast. But
yeah, anyway. You're welcome. You're welcome, other podcasts. But it kind of so it's nice to see Franz Wagner playing in this game. Not nice to see him make those free throws at the end, but just kind of like, it makes you wonder, if Kuminga had gone to the Thunder, would the Warriors have gone Wagner? Would they have gone Giddey? It sounds like they were more into Giddey, but Wagner's had a good season. But Wendell Carter Jr. is a player that, if people remember back to the 2020 draft when the Warriors got James Wiseman, there was a rumor that was close to or leading up to the draft, like that, definitely that week, where it was the Warriors had the number 2 pick, and it would be the number 2 pick to the Bulls for Wendell Carter, because Wendell Carter Jr. was on the Bulls, and the 4th pick. And so, so it made me think multiverse wise, what would you prefer, Patrick? Wendell Carter. So on the Warriors, let's say the Warriors trade Wendell Carter to the Bull. Oh, sorry, trade the number 2 pick and like, I don't know, Jordan Poole, and then we get Wendell Carter Jr. and we draft Tyrese Haliburton.
Ooh.
How do you feel?
Ooh.
The multiverse is full of difficult choices.
That is tough, but it can also, in a way, be easy in the sense you're getting 2 players for 1. Because if you're assuming the Weisman we have we would get is the one that we have, as much as I believe in Weisman right now, he's hurt. So you're basically saying like, give me Haliburton and Wendell Carter.
Give me 2
Jordan
players
Poole.
Who are playing right now.
Yeah, for Jordan Poole. And as well as Jordan Poole is playing in, as much as we've talked him up in this episode and throughout the season, I mean, I could easily talk up Haliburton just as much if I saw him on the Warriors on a nightly basis. So in that scenario where it's like, hey, you go back to 2020, it's like, hey, if you draft James Wiseman, he's going to get hurt and he's going to be out for over a year. Then I'd be like, okay, here's Jordan Poole, the second pick, and I'll take Haliburton, I'll take Patrick Williams, I'll take whomever, and I'll take Wendell Carter as a big body throw in. Sure, yeah, I would do that right now. Right now, I would.
But we didn't know the future. So.
What about you? What you doing?
I mean, this is Manic Warriors fandom, right? Like, and fan fiction, right? So we're just like taking it in all these different directions. Like, I want the guys who can play right now. Yeah. I am a believer in James Wiseman, but it's getting hard to believe because you can't see him. Like he's having trouble getting on the court, and first and foremost, it's like you want him to get back on the court for his own sake and his own career and all those kinds of things. So, no, it sucks. It just sucks. And so, part of this is just, wanting the Warriors to be as good as possible right now, especially after a not a very fun game, So, I would take the guys who are standing and playing right now and giving us a better chance right now.
Wait, let me ask you though, healthy, would you do that trade?
Oh, Weisman and Poole for Haliburton and Carter?
Yeah.
Carter Jr.? Ooh.
This will tell me a lot what to think about Weisman.
Like knowing what I know now. I would still take that deal because Wendell Carter Jr. I mean, the whole point of bringing this up is that like he looks pretty good. He's big, but he moves pretty well. He's got nice touch. Nice not glasses. Like super athletic, and yes, he has nice glasses. He has very interesting glasses. So that's a good segue because I wear glasses, and not all the time, but most of the time. Have you ever worn glasses?
Knock on wood, I do not wear glasses. My brother has worn glasses since he was a teenager. I'm lucky not to have so far. Knock on wood.
Well, you are lucky. And I can't imagine playing basketball with glasses, but if I had to play if I had to play basketball with glasses, Wendell Carter Jr.'s glasses are pretty sick. Like, have you seen them? They're kind of like they have these dark rims. They're kind of like combination between ski goggle and wraparound glasses, if people can imagine that. And there's not that many NBA players who have played with glasses. Obviously, you got your 80s. That's probably the apex of glasses wearing basketball players. And they were all the same style. So there was like Kareem, James Worthy, Thurl Bailey. Who else had glasses in the 80s? Hakeem used to wear them a little bit.
Moses wear them for a while?
Yeah. So it was kind of like a thing. And then you had your Horace Grant glasses, which were a little bit more kind of like almost like a swim goggle,
Yeah.
They were thick. And then you later had your Bo Outlaw. That was and Amari Stoudemire. Those were the more Sport Shield types. Clearly I pay attention to this a lot. because when I have to play sports, I gotta put these contact lenses on and it's not very fun. But no, I just wanted to shout out Wendell Carter Jr.'s glasses because that's pretty cool. Now
are these glasses that you would wear on the street?
No, I mean, but they are closer to streetwear glasses than pretty much any other NBA player wearing glasses. Now, except this would be the caveat is that the kind of most iconic ones are not most, but an iconic one from the 80s would be the Kurt Rambis glasses.
Yeah,
because that's the glasses. It's just like, oh, he's just wearing like reading glasses.
Yeah, he's just wearing glasses he picked up at the drugstore. Yeah. He put a strap on it.
Yeah, with a piece of tape, So, those are definitely the everyday wear glasses versus, But these Wendell Carter ones, they look they got like a nice matte finish to them as well. So shout out to whoever custom built those. It's pretty nice. And also shout out to one of the original glasses wearing NBA players, George Mikan, the original big man. And if you go back and you look at his glasses, they're pretty nice actually. So way better. I always thought they were Kurt Rambis dollar store types, but no, they look pretty sick. So
yeah.
This is in honor of NBA players wearing glasses.
I know there's a day when I will have to wear glasses, but I hope it's not anytime soon, because I think it would just blow my mind to have to like wear glasses after so many decades of not. I'd be like, how do I function? Like, what am I supposed to do with these things?
Well, it's one of those things where if you are a glasses wearer and then you occasionally wear contact lenses, there will be times where you're pushing up ghost glasses that aren't there. So it's not fun. So count yourself lucky, limit your screen time, all those kinds of things. Eat your carrots, I guess.
Hey, carrots were my favorite food when I was in 4th grade. I was the one person when we were learning how to do bar graphs. It was like everybody's favorite food. Me trying, I guess I like being different. I was like, my favorite food is carrots. Not pizza, not hamburgers, not pasta, whatever.
Did you eat them though?
Carrots. I did. Okay. They were like they were like snacks and stuff, but
you were investing in your glasses-less future.
Yeah, always afraid of being just like everybody else. No, just kidding. All right. Well, anything else on this forgettable game that the Warriors had against the Magic, or thoughts moving forward?
Well, it's always interesting to see them out on the East Coast and on these road trips. Let's hope they can pull it together. This is a tough road trip, and we just want to focus on the process and playing well. And let's ramp it up to the playoffs.
Yeah, because like I said this before Draymond came back. It's like you just don't want this vibe of being beat down after a road trip, right? All of a sudden, like you're losing like this perspective on what kind of team you are and who you guys are as players. And I don't know, maybe it's not that easy for them, but like, to have their confidence waver. But like, say they end up 3-7 from here on out after this game, that's not going to do good things for your mojo going into the postseason. Like there will be, if there's like a measurement stick for confidence, even if you're super confident, it's going to come down, relatively speaking. You're going to be feeling pretty bad about things in general. So hopefully they can right that ship. Well, before I wrap it up, some non-Warriors related news, I want to congratulate my girlfriend, partner, Paola Mardo, on joining Ryan Coogler's company, Proximity Media, as the head of audio. She's been working in podcasting for years now and just left Malcolm Gladwell's Pushkin Industries to join Ryan Coogler's company. And I shout this out because ever since I started this podcast back in 2018, I have the credits at the end that are always the same. And the very last one is special thanks to Paola Mardo for production support. And, she's a big supporter of the show and my biggest fan. So just figured I'd put that out there into the universe because she deserves this and she's earned this. And I look forward to seeing what she and Coogler's company, what they create.
Oh, that was awesome. That was well said. Well deserved for Paula. Like, that's amazing and couldn't be happier for a better person. So
appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Hopefully she listens to this episode all the way to the end then.
I just, skip through the glasses part and,
She's like, who's Kurt Rambis? But yeah, man, thanks for coming on. If you want to come on any other time, this last stretch, you're more than welcome, especially on this East Coast road trip. And we will definitely schedule some playoff podcast episodes. And
Yeah, let's
because
go.
that's gonna be some other level of emotion for you. So I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, that is another episode of the Oakland Warriors podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Patrick Epino, Epino. You can find Aram at Aram Collier, AramCollier. Be sure to check out the new Oakland Warriors YouTube channel. The link to that is going to be below in the show notes. Be sure to tell your fellow Warrior fan friends to tune in and listen. The Oakland Warriors podcast is produced by National Film Society and is a part of the Basketball Podcast Network. And if you're so inclined, please do leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts and say nice stuff about us in the review on Apple Podcasts. That would be much appreciated. Thanks for listening. That's it.
Music in this episode provided by Paper Sun. Special thanks to Paola Mardo for production support. See you next time.